Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday to you all. It is Dr. Tracy. And as everyone begins to log in on this beautiful Monday morning, I'm actually over in Hawaiian time. And it's super early in the morning here. And I have a little bit of a different sleep pattern. That I have a philosophy when it comes to sleeping that I sleep until I'm done sleeping. But then from there, I actually need a lot of sleep. I sleep like 10 hours. And I wake up every night around 3 in the morning. They say it's the spiritual time of day. And I wake up around 3 o'clock in the morning and always do like some sort of prayers and meditations and things of that nature. And so I'm a little sleepy this morning if I seem that way. How's everyone doing? Happy Monday morning. Hello, Indy Massage. It's nice to see you. Brianna, it's nice to see you. Mrs. Curvey, California. I believe that's Kimberly, Lisa, Mrs. Curvey Classique. Nice to see you. Hello, Donna. It's nice to see you. And Shannon, it's good morning, good morning, good morning, Tia. We have lots of people logging in all over. Good morning, good morning. It's nice to see you all. So listen, welcome to episode 2 of 16 and Me. So if this is the first time you're joining us, let me tell you why this show is called 16 and Me. The reason that this show is called 16 and Me is because, being female myself, at least last I checked, and working with women for over 25 years, I really believe that within each and every one of us, there are about 17 different personas that live inside of each and every woman. How many of you would agree with that? And for the most part, we all get along. We all know each other, right? No problem. And we all get along fabulously, except for 16. So who exactly is 16? Well, 16 is that persona inside of us that has an ego out to here, fear out to here, insecurities and issues out to here, coupled with some trauma wounds, etc., etc. In the world of psychology, people call this the pathological critic. And it's that harsh, critical voice that literally can just eat us up, beat us up from the inside. In the world of spirituality, they may call her the shadow feminine, right? All the internal wounds that we're not willing to face that keep us blocked. Me? For years, I've called her 16. And let me tell you, she is a pill. Because if we don't learn to silence this inner critic voice, it is one of the number one things that will sabotage us from being able to live our life according to our life by design. And I have to tell you that I have spent my entire life like on the cushion of the couch trying to get rid of my layers and layers and layers of trauma wounds and issues and all those different things. And understanding this thing called the critical voice, that it existed, that it wasn't really me, was huge and healing to me. And so the purpose of this show, 16 and Me, is to help each and every one of you understand, first off, learn to hear that critical voice. I like to say that the job of this show is 16 and Me, is to be able to silence and yet celebrate, to be able to edit and yet empower that sweet 16 voice inside of us. So how is it that I can call this persona 16 sweet? Because one day in my prayer and meditation time, I asked the universe, I'm like, so why did she end up with number 16? And the answer that I got is because, hello, Janet. Janet and her 16 just arrived. So the reason that we call her 16 is because 1 plus 6 is 7, and 7 is a magical, perfect, complete number. And so what that means is that we need that 16 in our life. In other words, you know, people, I came up with a word a while back, and I called it an expansion, not a reinvention of self, because if you look at the definition of a reinvention is when you transform yourself into somebody that you no longer recognize, right? And I got to thinking about that, and that always felt very daunting to me and a bit abandoning. And the reason being is that part of what I went through is a makeup of who I am today. So I don't have to live with it as a primary in my life. Like, in other words, I had a vision one day about there were 17 seats at the table, and I always say that the table looked like the Last Supper, right? And there were 17 seats at the table. And what I realized is that the reason that my life was struggling so much is because 16 was taking up about 15 of those seats. Well, that doesn't work. 16 gets 1 seat at the table. And the goal of this show is to help you identify your 16, learn to celebrate, silence, edit, yet empower that internal voice, the one who is really at the end of the day just scared that we're going to get hurt again. But she gets 1 seat at the table. So this show is actually a call-in show, and I've had so much fun this week because I have had many of you write me personally and be like, "Dang, my 16 showed up today, and you can't imagine how she tried to sabotage the day." Well, let me tell you, I get it, because I am so deep and many years into my repair journey, and my 16 still pops up all the time. Does she level me like she used to? No. Does she send me into anxiety land like she used to? No. Does she completely, derail me? No. But doesn't mean that she's completely silenced. No, sometimes she tries to take up more than 1 seat at the table, and she overpowers me. I'm in Hawaii. It's swimsuit season out here. Do the math on that one. She had a heyday on me. Are you really gonna go out looking like that? I mean, are you really gonna traumatize the people in the cabana next to you with that fat on your body? How many of you can relate to that? Okay. That's 16. Those are the times when we need to say, okay, wait, what's going on here? So at this time, I actually have a guest in the waiting room, and we're going to talk about their 16. And here we go. We have Miss. Here we go. Let's have a conversation with the beautiful Tia Hansberger, who Tia's on my team, and hey, Tia.
Hi.
Readjust myself here. Oh, hold on. Hold on. I got to take this out because I can't hear you.
Resetting.
Can you
There
hear
you
me now?
are. I can hear you now. Yes, I can.
Yeah, sorry for that. My headsets took over.
So I just have to start out and say that my 16 does not like the lighting in this room that I'm in.
And what is she telling you?
That your face looks funny, that your hair looks frizzy, that you should have rescheduled your day to be in a place that you had better lighting or I'm actually working at my office today. I do have a mask sitting here next to me, but I'm in a private room, so I can take it off. But she's kind of telling me that, like, maybe you should have just planned life different. But anyway, it is what it is.
She said
My
to
message
me
is the
is
same,
that,
whether the lighting is good or not. So,
my 16 is, she crosses between the time police and the time rebellion. And I mean, we can get into these internal thought discussions. We'll say, like, you need to run on time. Do you know what time it is? And then the other side says, nobody gets to control me, right? All these thoughts, all these thoughts. So I absolutely loved having you. I love having you on the show right now, because I know that, this past week, lots going on. You've got your shows, you've got your work, you're getting ready to go on vacation, you've got your team that you're managing, you're starting the new season of the Reclaiming Me, et cetera, et cetera. And so the dialogue kind of went like this, that Tia and I were, going back and forth, and I think you were working on a project or something, and I checked in on it. And Tia's response to me was, you want to share what you said?
Well, I'll give a little background. I woke up one morning and I think my 16 was tired of social distancing, right? She's like, screw this. I don't want to be on my own anymore. I want to get involved. So I messaged you and said that my 16 was very vocal that day. And, in Reclaiming Me, we're always learning about self-love. And it was really hard to find that self-love base with, 16 right here, just talking in my ear all day. And it was a busy day for me. And my 16 was kind of questioning things I did and said in my relationship, things I did in my interior designer job, things I said and did for work I was doing for you. And it was just like coming in from all directions. And I was like, I kind of gave her this disapproving look. And I'm like, do I really need that today?
Do I really need that? Well, let's talk a little bit about that, and I can explain what's happening. So the thing that you have to understand is that there's always a reason that this critical voice launches within us. Again, in psychology, the psychology calls it the pathological critic, and in spirituality they call it the divine feminine. Around here in Tracy land and Win land, Mrs. Globeland, we call it 16. So there's a couple of things that are really important to know. Is, first off, being able to recognize it, and it is so healing and empowering, isn't it, Tia, when you're able to thought stop, which thought stop you means, okay, stop. You're able to thought stop, and put that space to understand it's not me. Because one of the things that was super healing for me is, because this pathological critic, because 16's voice is so interwoven in our thought process, we oftentimes have a difficult time understanding that it's not me. You see, for years, when my 16 would pop up and just begin bashing me, just like an inner judge and jury, from the inside, I thought it was me. But when I learned that there's a reason that voice was launched, I was able to draw that space. And that's what, when you identify it as 16, that draws that space. And it's in that space that change and healing can take place. So in your situation, when you find 16 just coming after you all day long, it's no different than, I guess, how the law of attraction actually works, where, all something, negative needs is that one little alleyway in. And if it goes in, it will just continue to go and continue to go. That's why she was following you all day long. So it could be like, maybe you didn't get enough sleep. It could be you just might be off that day. It could be that you did make a mistake of some sort, and old patterns kick in, and then the next thing you know, we're like, gosh, should I have said it? Could I have said something a little bit differently? Oh my God, why did I eat that? Seriously, I have to go there, and and before you know it, you're just a gush of negative energy. And, being that we believe in manifesting around here in Tracy land, that what happens is that this is how we begin to manifest a negative life is because how long does it take to you for a thought to go out there to attract onto it something equal? 7 seconds. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you are trained on how to shut down 16 when she begins to chat. Let me just add one other thing. As for those viewers of us who if you're new here, um, we just believe that self-love is a non-negotiable, and when we're walking in that inner critic, when 16 is just shouting, we're stepping out of self-love. And the goal is really to be able to step back into self-love and learn how to have a kinder conversation with self. Really quickly, hello, Karen. It's nice to see you. We have a couple hellos, and then I'm going to let Tia take over. Oops. Hello, Mrs. North America. Nice to see you. Hello, Spiro. Nice to see you. Very nice. Okay, so Tia, when you were going along, because when my response back to you when I got that was, you nailed it on the head. It is absolutely impossible to live with it walking in self-love and letting 16 just plummet you on the inside. So what did you do to silence 16?
Well, I guess I suppose I kind of had a conversation with her. And for me, learning about thought stopping from you, and then in some other things, oftentimes we hear that anxiety is really a tool to keep us safe, right? So we know like what's safe and what isn't. And I think 16 is kind of like that for me as well. When she's like talking in my ear, it's like, okay, well, why is this happening? And why does she think what I did wasn't good? And so it's a great place for me to step back and just really listen, but not take it all to heart, right? Like hear what's coming up, but not own it, right? And to really allow, like, to be open to it, but not let it send me down that rabbit trail. I did that day. I think when you and I were having that text conversation, I think I was sitting in my car. I went into this deli and got bad food for me. And, I normally eat really healthy, but yeah, I got some not so great food. And that was kind of like, okay, self-love was not on my side that day. But by the end of the day, I was able to kind of get my feet back underneath me and be like, okay, there's a reason why she's talking to me. And I can kind of be aware of that and dig into that a little bit. And then the next day I was kind of ready to move on, and I wasn't in that same place. But it happens, and I think the more we're aware of when she comes into our life, the better tools we have to listen to what really matters, but not take things that don't matter to heart, right? Because you looked great in a swimsuit on the beach and it didn't really matter, and 16 didn't need to tell you to feel uncomfortable, right? And so we learn like what we need to hear and what we don't. At least that's how it's been for me.
Yeah, that's perfect. There's a tool that I want to teach today based on that, and the tool is, first off, in order to really be able to live at peace with 16 and get on with your life, because 16 lives in the trauma of the past and the fear of the future. And in our job as a director of me is to get her to sit down at the table, take her seat at the table, respect that she's there, because she represents something that happened to us in the past, right? And no matter what, we can't. Our past is our past. It is a layer in our makeup and who we are. So it's a technique, and it's called thought stopping. And thought stopping is, as I said earlier, it's literally that when you go, okay, stop, and you recognize these are unhealthy emotions. Now, you said something that's also really important, Tia, and we talked about this when we were having our chat. Is there's times when my 16 is just shouting at the top of her lungs on the inside of me, and I'll try to thought stop, and she doesn't stop, and whatnot. And it's at those moments that I remember that 16 does have a seat at the table. She really does. And for the most part, she's afraid about getting hurt or traumatized again. And so when I can't shut her off, rather than, thought stop and just say, stop it, I will instead step into that voice, step into that message. And I literally say, what is it that you need me to know? And here was the interesting thing is for me, when I couldn't shut her off down at the pool, I realized that, it was all going back to messages of rejection and not being loved and not being visible, and all those wounds that just, I work on them all the time, but there they were. It was just an environment that opened the door to them. And so she began to talk and talk, and I'm like, what? And I start walking through. I'm like, what are you trying to tell me right now? And literally behind that judgmental, condemning voice was, don't you know how much it's going to hurt to get rejected again? Don't put yourself out there. Don't put yourself out there. And the the most important thing that we need to do is to talk back to our 16 and
Totally.
tell her the truth, right? Is she's living in the past, she's living in the future. We need to get her present, and literally, it's a voice that you talk back to that trauma wound, because that's all 16 is. You talk back to that trauma wound and you say, okay, listen, 16. First and foremost, I doubt the people in the cabana next to me are even looking my way. And even if I am a big blubberball, they probably don't care. Yes, you've been around people that care about things like that, but the rest of the world doesn't care. And at the end of the day, do you really even care if complete strangers think that you're a blubberball? No. So take breath. Let's reconnect to self. Let's remember that our job is not to sit around and live in misery, but to live in joy and to readjust and to get back to joy, so that you can experience this day that you're not going to get back. It's, after today's gone, it's gone. Okay, Coretta's cracking up. It's nice to see you. Let's see, what do we have here? Kimberly, do you find specific triggers that regularly bring 16 to the surface? Well, that's a good question, Kimberly. All of us have different triggers. It depends on your trauma wounds. Like, for example, some people are afraid of heights, and some people are afraid of milk, right? So if you're exposed to milk, I would just be like, but it might traumatize another person, and so it's always just connected to whatever your personal trauma wound is. So
I think that piece of being able to talk back, like 16 has a voice and we listen, but it's not like we don't get to have we get to have a conversation back with her and negotiate why we're feeling this way. And that's something I've really learned recently is she doesn't just get to talk, she also has to listen.
exactly, that is such a good point, and that's when the thought stopping has to come in, because we can't talk and listen at the same time. And there's certain 16 voices where we just need to like break up with them, and we do not have this conversation anymore. You are not permitted to have these thoughts in me anymore. But there's others that we need to say, okay, princess, not today, princess, sit down. Take your seat at the table, princess, because I'm in control, not you. And the person that got us into that train wreck in the past is no longer leading, no longer the conductor of this train, right? Oh my goodness. Well, I appreciate you so much sharing, Tia,
For
with
sure.
with that. Even if you're in a lighting that you don't like and your hair frizzy, and and you're doing all your safety measures and whatnot. Well, listen, I would love to. Anybody have some open questions that you would like to ask about 16? We have just a few more minutes. I want to invite all of you to, if you haven't had a chance, over on Facebook we have our community, and it's called the Be She Community. and it's a success and empowerment group. And the SHE is an acronym for spiritually made, because I really believe that we're spiritual beings and we need to awaken that spirituality even more so in life right now. H means honorably present. And that, honor is an action word. And that's one of the things, especially this ties into so much with 16. Again, it's when we're walking in our 16, we're not walking in our present. And so empowerment is really about learning how to, be here and now in the present. So important. And then doing something with our life. We are great creators, especially women. We are creators. And we create life within us. We have that sixth sense. We have that eye on the back of our head that we can see what's going on all around us, right? And the E stands for emotionally free and empowered, because it's when we are emotionally free and empowered that we're able to manifest our life by design. And so it's over on the Facebook page, and if you just search for Be She Success Community, we'll be able to invite you in. And also, Tia is our project manager for our Reclaiming Me program, and we're launching a new season. You want to say anything about that, Tia?
Yeah, so both on Instagram and social, or on so Facebook, it's a Facebook group. Instagram, it's a page called Reclaiming Me with Dr. Tracy. You can find both of those groups online, get connected with us. Next week, we're going to be learning about how a narcissist uses, what the term fuel means in the narcissistic world. And I know that's going to be a very meaningful and touching educational class for a lot of people. I'm excited to be
there. Because this is a very important class, because when you're affected by the trauma wounds of narcissistic abuse, you're just so convinced that it's you, or it has to do with the rejection of you, or we take it personal, and at the end of the day, it's not personal. It's all about this thing called fuel, right? 16 right. Thinks about you. What did you do again? All right. Okay, so next week on 16 and Me, I'm going to be diving deeper into explaining to you exactly how do we get this critical voice inside of us? How is 16 birthed? And what is the root issues that we need to do to step deeper into our journey of self-love? All right, everyone, I believe that we are just about out of time. Tia, thank you so much for sharing your voice of 16. And any of you who are interested in coming on and being a guest on our show, we can talk about your 16, because when you talk about your 16, it really helps other people go, oh my God, I'm not crazy. No, 16, we're not crazy. Stand down, princess, not today, right? All right. Lots of love from you guys. See you next Friday.